Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I show you how to divide iris. So let's go. I have a bunch of bearded iris in this bed. They start over here and they go all the way down to the other side of the bed. I planted them here a few years ago and I noticed that they were really leaning towards the sun. They were not getting enough light where they were planted. So I've decided that it's time to remove them from this area. And what we're going to do today is we're going to be digging them up, dividing them, and we're just going to be potting them up. But I'm going to go over some of the basics of how to divide iris, when to divide them, and why you should divide them. It is now the end of July. It is a perfect time to start dividing iris. In fact, there's a small window of time when you should be dividing your iris if you want to make sure that you want to see blooms for next year. And it sounds funny to be dividing a perennial in the middle of summer. A lot of times you think you should wait, but iris is one of a few plants that definitely prefers to be divided in the mid to late summer months. Since iris like to be planted very shallow, I'm just going to be using a small hand shovel to do the job. I just have a small bucket here to collect all the iris that we're going to be digging today. I'm not too concerned about mixing up all the different colors. You can see that there's a nice fresh layer of mulch here. So I'm going to remove the mulch from the base of each plant so that it makes it easier to dig the plant and also so it doesn't make a mess in this garden bed. The next thing we're going to do is dig. You never want to dig right at the base of the plant. You don't want to ruin your plant, your tuber, your bulb, whatever it is that you're digging. You always want to try to dig out at least 1 to 2 inches from the base of the plant. And you can see that it's not an extensive root system to it, but there are some nice healthy roots. And you can see as we go this way, there are quite a few iris towards the back of the bed that need to be dug up. So I'm going to go ahead and get them all dug up, and then I'm going to show you how we go about dividing some of the iris. All right, the good news, I got them all dug up. They look really good. And I had already cut them back a few weeks ago. That's why they have this nice fan appearance to them. And whenever you dig up your iris and you're going to divide them and move them around your yard, it's always a good idea to cut them at an angle like this, because once you get them planted in the ground again, if it's very windy out, what's going to happen is the iris are just going to fall over or flop around. And that's because you're not planting them very deep after you get them planted in the ground. So make sure you cut them in such a way that it's making a fan appearance. It's all about the aerodynamics of the iris plant. The other good thing I wanted to share was I was very diligent last year and I divided all these iris before I planted them. So the bad news is not many of them need to be divided this year. What I'm going to do is just quickly go through all of these, and I know I found 1 or 2 that can be divided. And then I'm going to take you to a different part of my yard where I have a very pretty yellow colored iris that definitely needs to be divided. So let's first go through all of these and find the 1 or 2 that we can divide together. Okay, so I found some that we can divide. They're not great examples of ones you would normally divide in your yard because I could leave them as is and they would be fine. But we're going to go ahead and divide them down. So I'm going to take you in for a closer look and show you my process. One thing to remember is iris benefit from being divided every 3 to 5 years. So make sure you do that. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have a big clump and in the center, it's going to die off. So I try to divide my iris very often just to keep them good and healthy. If you look at this clump right here, you see that there's leaves on this side, there's leaves on this side. And you also will notice that this one here has roots attached to it, and this one here has roots attached to it. We could clean off some of the dirt just so we can see what we're doing. I like to use nice sharp hand pruners, and you just want to cut where you have a piece of your iris that has some root attached to it. just like that. And you can do the same thing on this side. This piece right here was last year's old growth. That can get discarded. And we just turned one iris plant into two iris plants. Notice that each iris has 3 fans. Typically, iris will bloom once they have at least 5 fans on a plant. So just keep that in mind. These are still young plants. This one right here, you'll notice there's a bigger plant and then a small plant. I pulled it aside just to show you. In this case here, I would not divide this because this piece right here does not have a clear piece of root attached to it. I would leave this plant as is. This right here is old growth. You can see it doesn't look very good, but attached to it are 2 small little baby plants. We're going to go ahead and remove those. There's one plant right there, and another one right there. And then again, we can go ahead and throw this away. In this example here, notice you have a big plant and then 2 small baby plants on either side. In your garden, you may decide not to do what I'm doing here, which is dividing off the small pieces. I had to dig all these iris up anyway out of that garden space, so I might as well go through the effort of dividing them while I'm at it. This one has a small root right here, and that right there. With this guy, again, look how rotted that is. That's no good. So what we can do is just cut right here. And we have a good piece that's right there. It might not bloom for like 3 years, but that's fine. And that one right there. All these iris will be potted up into 3 to 4 inch containers. And they're going to go down in my backyard plant nursery. And next year, I'll decide where I want to put them. I'm not going to be selling these. I'm going to be keeping these. But for tonight, I'm just going to put some compost on the roots. I'm going to water this in, and I'm going to keep this in my barn. And we're going to tackle this project on a rainy day. Do you ever plant a plant in a temporary holding spot and then you realize you really don't like where you planted it because it was a temporary holding spot? Well, that's what happened over there. Those are a dwarf type of iris. They're more of a woodland iris, and they would do better being more in my shady area of my yard. On a different day, I'm going to be coming in and digging all those out and dividing those. Those over there are very pretty yellow colored iris. I don't know the variety or the name, but they're pretty. And again, it was planted there temporarily. So we're going to be digging those up and dividing those as well. I'm not sure how long these iris have been here, but it's been a number of years. They definitely need to be divided. Plus, I don't like their location. For this job, I'm going to use a larger shovel to dig. I wanted to show you this one clump here that we dug up. Notice the way that all of the bulbs are kind of going on top of each other. And it basically left an open area in the center. That's usually an indicator that it's time to divide your iris. So I can come in here and I can see like this one is just falling off pretty easily. And the important thing is it has roots attached to it. It has leaves attached to it. So what I want to do is cut back the leaves. You want to leave some leaves on here because there's still plenty of season left and you want to be feeding the rhizome for next year. Notice the roots. They are a nice light color, cream color. If they were a very dark brown color, that might be last year's roots, and it's okay to clip those off then. Now is a great time to go ahead and just pull off any old material, any leaves, anything like that. And you basically just work your way through this pile here. So that just pulled off very easily when I tugged at it. And I can see that I can basically just pull off pieces pretty easily. That might not always be the case though. You might have to use your pruners and cut them or divide them apart. And again, I'm just coming in and I'm just clipping off the leaves. Now, normally you might want to take these divisions and plant them somewhere in your landscape. I don't know where I want to put these yet. So these will be potted up, and I'm going to show you my process for getting them potted up, but it would be the same process as if you were going to put them in the ground. I'm just going through this to see if there's any other good examples I want to point out. Right here, you'll notice that there's nothing growing off this end right here. It is totally okay to cut. That used to be hard for me to do when I first started working with iris. I felt like you can't do that. But if you have a rhizome that's very, very large and half of it is brown, then you can go ahead and remove that old part of the rhizome because it's not doing anything for the plant. This is a totally viable little division. This piece right here in the center has some white roots. I can go ahead and clip it. And when there's only a few leaves on here, and if a leaf falls off, it's okay, just pull it off. Now, when I'm looking at these roots on the bottom here, I'm noticing this darker brown color, like towards the center here. Those are old pieces. They're not going to do anything. So if you look at the top, that's typically last year's growth right there. So the pieces that you want to keep are the newer pieces, like this one over here. And it's just falling off, which is making my job so much easier. And what's remaining, honestly, maybe, possibly, something on here might grow from this, but I wouldn't keep this piece. I would discard this piece. If you wanted to, though, you could take it, you could put it in the ground, and you could see if anything else is going to come off of it. But I'm not going to keep this piece. So in this example here, again, you can see we have a few good pieces on this side and then one good piece on this side. We can go ahead and remove this one. This one here looks like a big tangled mess. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to just pull them apart. Whatever the variety of this iris is, it's definitely easier to just pull them apart, but not all iris will be that easy. So in this case, I can't pull this piece off. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to discard this piece. Even if there's a piece on there that might grow, I'm not keeping it. I still have quite a few iris to tackle, but I can do that later. Tomorrow it's supposed to rain. It's going to be a great rainy day project. I have container pots that I like to reuse. I get them from a local garden center, and I'm all about recycling pots. So I'm just going to be using those, and I'm using compost that I get from a local transfer station, which is free to me. It has some pieces of debris in there that I don't care for, maybe bigger pieces of wood. But overall, it's good stuff. It works for me for potting up purposes. Now, the process that I'm showing you would be the same as if you were to take your division of your iris and plant it out in your landscape. You want to make sure that all the roots are below soil level, but you want to make sure that the top part of your iris is exposed. That's very important. If you plant your iris too deep, what will happen is the iris most likely will not bloom for you next year. But you also don't want to have it too shallow, because if you have it too shallow, it's apt to just fall around. Sometimes the wind will take it down. Sometimes an animal will dig it out. So what I like to do is put the roots in, but I'm holding this up. And I would be doing the same process if I was trying to get this into a hole in the ground. So now that the roots are in, I'm going to backfill. And if I need to, I can lift this iris up a little higher if I need to out of this compost. I'm just pushing down. You want to make sure you push down so that this is nice and firm. I can add a little bit more. And that's it. The plant will actually start creating more roots and will push itself more into this pot. But this is as far as we're going to go with that. The next thing I would do is give this a good drink of water. And then this plant's going to go down in my plant nursery. Next year, when we go shopping for plants for the yard, I'll definitely be checking out these iris. And there you have it. It's a pretty simple process. This is the best time of year to be doing this project. That other patch of iris that I showed you, it's called cristata, and it's super pretty. I will be digging that up on a different day, and I'll be doing the same process. I will be dividing it and potting it up into these pots. This year, as some of you know, my goal for my flower beds has been to work on one flower bed at a time. And with that effort, I am cleaning up flower beds. I'm making room for more plants. And I can't wait for next year to go shopping in my backyard plant nursery, because even though there's plants in there that are for sale for local friends, there are also plants down there, such as these iris, that I'm putting down there for myself as a holding spot, so that when I am ready to work on a new flower bed next year that's been all cleaned up this year, I can go shopping, I can see these blooming, and then we'll be able to plant them in new places in the yard. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Please drop them down in the comment section below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.